Let's take a few minutes today to learn how to work our own machinery, our mind and body. Because here's the truth, in this culture, most of us were never taught how to operate the most important system we'll ever have. When people ask me, how do I get motivated? The answer is not as mysterious as it might seem. Motivation is not magic, it's biology, it's chemistry.
And if you understand how your nervous system is wired, you'll know how to harness it. One of the most powerful levers you have is dopamine. Dopamine is not about the finish line. It's not about the moment you finally win or the big reward at the end. Dopamine is released in the pursuit.
Think of an animal grazing on a barren landscape. It searches. It veers one way, then another. No water, no food, but then suddenly it catches a scent. That small signal triggers a surge of dopamine. And what does that do? It gives the animal energy it didn't have a moment ago.
Introspective. Imagine walking in the desert, dying of thirst, and suddenly spotting water in the distance. A mile ago, you felt like you were at the end. Now, you can run, not because you suddenly created fuel in your body, not because your muscles changed, but because dopamine said, there's something worth moving toward.
That's how dopamine works. And it doesn't work alone. It's paired with adrenaline, also called epinephrine. Dopamine manufactures adrenaline. They're like cousins. One says, I crave. The other says, now move. Together they create this loop. Crave, work, until you reach the goal.
But here's where most people get it wrong. They think dopamine is only about the big win. They think motivation comes when you cross the finish line. That's not true. If you can attach dopamine to the process, the effort itself, you will never run out of motivation. This is why some people build companies, create successful projects, push through years of difficulty. Because they don't just celebrate the outcome. They learn how to celebrate the pursuit. Now let's be clear. When you do reach a big goal, dopamine peaks. That's normal. But if you allow yourself to go too high in celebration, you'll crash, you'll feel flat, unmotivated, and you'll wonder, what's wrong with me?
Nothing is wrong with you. That's biology. After every peak, there's a trough. The system has to reset. And here's the key. Don't chase another huge spike immediately. Give your brain time. Let it recalibrate. Accept that you'll feel a little underwhelmed for a day or two. That's not failure. That's the reset. If you respect that cycle, you discover something powerful. Your capacity to tap into dopamine, to harness motivation, is essentially limitless. So the first step is simple. Start noticing that craving, that agitation, that urge to impose your will on the world. That is not a weakness. That's dopamine doing its job. Learn to work with it. Attach it to effort, not just reward.
Because when seeking itself becomes the reward, you'll never lose motivation again. Now, let's go deeper into how this actually applies to your daily life. Because it's one thing to understand dopamine in theory, it's another to know how to use it when you wake up in the morning and don't feel like doing anything. The key is this: motivation is not about waiting to feel inspired. It's about learning to direct your chemistry. If you attach dopamine to small steps, the tiniest wins, you create momentum. Think of it this way: you don't need to wait until you run the marathon to feel good. You can feel good about lacing up your shoes. You can feel good about running that first mile. You can feel good about simply moving in the right direction.
This is not delusion. This is neuroscience. Dopamine is subjective. That means your brain doesn't care if you ran 1 mile or 20. What matters is what you tell yourself about the effort. If you say, that step mattered, that effort was valuable, your brain will reward you with more energy to keep going.
The opposite is also true. If you only allow yourself to feel good at the finish line, you're training your brain to see the process as suffering, and eventually you'll quit. So the practice is to move the horizon closer. Instead of saying, I'll celebrate when I make $1 million, say, I'll celebrate making my first call today. Failure, setbacks, even boredom. These don't mean your motivation is gone. They mean your brain is asking, how will you tag this experience? Will it be punishment or fuel? That's the fork in the road. One direction shuts you down, the other ignites you again.
Your biology is designed for pursuit. Every time you fail, every time you feel stuck, your dopamine system can be reactivated if you choose to frame the moment as part of the process. This isn't fake optimism. This is neuroscience. The way you interpret effort and failure literally rewires your nervous system.
And here's the secret. The most resilient people, the ones who build companies, win championships, create meaningful change. They don't avoid failure. They don't escape the reset. They embrace it. They learn to say, this is not the end. This is feedback. This is fuel. So here's a strategy. The next time you feel drained, don't look for a giant leap. Look for a small step. Ask, what effort can I reward right now? Not the big win, not the finish line, just the act of trying again. Attach dopamine to that. And suddenly motivation returns. Because listen, motivation is not about perfection. Motivation is about persistence. You will lose battles. You will have dips, but if you know how to reinterpret them, you will never lose the war.
Now for a moment. Life is not one straight sprint. It's a cycle. Effort, peak, reset. Effort, peak, reset. That's how your biologic is built. Respect that rhythm, and you will never burn out. This is why you don't need hacks. You don't need magic. You already have the system. Dopamine, adrenaline, craving, effort, it's inside you.
The only question is, will you attach it to the process, or will you wait for the world to hand you a finish line? So here's the final message. You will never lose motivation again if you stop treating it like a gift and start treating it like a skill. Anchor it to effort, celebrate the pursuit, accept the reset, reframe the failures.
Because when seeking itself becomes the reward, when the journey fuels you as much as the destination, then your motivation is limitless. And if you can remember that, you will never, ever lose motivation again.